talk about the role of anthropology in shining a light on issues and people and contested fields and make that more prominent than it is. So maybe one question: did it work? Did it push some buttons? Did it start inquiry that goes beyond just watching a 5-minute video?
It's been really interesting just to start noticing these things when you think about that. And then especially your thing, I just never really thought about what it must be like for refugees being in their skin, and that really made me just think about that, how hard it must be.
I mean, certainly our media in Australia is flooded with stories about refugees and asylum seekers and certain representations of asylum seekers, but it sounds like this episode might have helped people to see different aspects of their plight or issues around refugees. So I'm wondering if people have any ideas around what it is about anthropological engagement or anthropological presentation of these issues that might have helped you see it in a different light.
I think one of the benefits with anthropology is so often asylum seekers or refugees, they're framed in the media as either a national security problem or, a drain on our resources. And I think anthropology just, highlights the effect again that they're humans and this is what actual effect it has on them, because it can either, it prevents them from their location at home, which is strong importance to their identity, but also by not having documentation and stuff that further inhibits them from accessing things like education or employment, which are also crucial parts of who you are and how you behave in society. And I think anthropology has an important role in highlighting the human aspect of refugees and asylum seekers.
This idea of refugees threatening our national borders and the different stances that different countries take about whether to naturalise people who arrive as asylum seekers or refugees. I'm wondering if people have any ideas around why that sense of being threatened, or why those divisions around whether to make people citizens or keep people living in this sort of limbo.
Australian nationalism has a lot to say for why we don't accept refugees. The whole us versus them thing, they're doing the wrong thing, they're jumping the queue, and maybe anthropology has a role in educating the general population.
History teaches us that a nation always comes together when it's under external threat, and so if they turn asylum seekers into an external threat, then it makes what it means to be Australian even stronger.
The protests about building a new mosque on the Gold Coast, and it took me a moment to realise what I felt so off about it. And I'm like, if someone wanted to build a new church, like a Christian church, there would be probably a grand opening for it, celebrate, get a nice little article about how nice it is for the community. The mosque is, what is the difference? I see no difference between them building a mosque and building a church. So why is there an uproar on one and not the other when both religions are accepted in the country?
Why it is that we have these different perceptions of refugees as opposed to other immigrants, so refugees or asylum seekers seem to be treated really differently by the media, but also within public perception.
Maybe it's fear, fear of the unknown. When we're talking about religion, that's a big issue as well. A lot of people are even just a little bit familiar with Christianity and that sort of thing, but not many people have been to a mosque. No one really has an understanding of that, so it's kind of fear from a perspective of ignorance.
It's it's more complex than that, right?
Yes.
And that's the issue about the stories. Lots of different populations have different stories about how they end up in Malaysia, how they end up in Australia,